All right, everybody, welcome back to another edition of From the Booth with the Crimson Connective. I'm your host this week, Alex Markham. Good old Cole actually had to step away to do some family stuff during the times that we usually do this, But with that being said, I want to welcome in Maria Kholodova. Maria, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. So obviously it's Cal Week, guys. So I have Maria on here from Rivals site, the Golden Bear Report. She works with my buddy Ryan Young as well as Matt Moreno over there. So two good people, Maria. Two good people. But hopefully they don't give you too hard of a time, right?
Oh, no, they're great.
But man, so it's crazy. One of the main thing I'm kicking into with everybody this year, and it's bittersweet, right? I don't even like talking about it, but at least there's, at least the dust has settled a little bit. Take me through just the surrealness of the Pac-12 folding. And I mean, obviously Cal ended up in a conference now, but it's still a weird situation.
Yeah, I mean, I think the weirdest day was that one Friday when like everything kind of the dominoes started and no one had any idea what was going on. I was at Cal Fall Camp that day. And it was just kind of the atmosphere in the air. Everyone was like, I have no idea what's going on. And so kind of it was a little bit of that for a while. And then now it's, I said this a couple weeks ago, but the word relief has been thrown around a good amount with fans just to like
True.
at least know where they're going. Cause I mean, all my love for Washington State and Oregon State, but they're in a tough spot right now. And at least we have somewhere to go, which I think has been nice.
Yeah, no, it's just, I mean, you look at it and Cal has struggled recently in sports. Okay. Let's throw it out there. Easy to admit, they're actually showing really good signs with football this year, and that's stuff that we'll kick into for a bit, right? But the thing with Cal that's always a draw is the academic standpoint of things, right? And so when them and Stanford were being left out, that was pretty jaw-dropping to me. I knew that they would land somewhere, but it was one of the most bizarre things now throughout that whole process, and it's still playing out. Obviously, you got Oregon State and Wazoo, and I love those two schools, but you get my opinion on them. It's a lot tougher to try to figure something for them P5 wise, other than they've been in one for so long, right? But yeah, it's Utah did everything they could with trying to hold down and stay in the Pac-12 as long as possible. They got a lot of grief from the Big 12 people for that. Mm-hmm. But again, you mentioned that Friday, a lot of the schools went into that thinking that the Pac was going to be saved, and then just all hell breaks loose again. So just unfortunate, but glad Cal has a home. Glad Stanford has a home. Saves our sanity a little bit,
I will say though, a part of that I thought was really interesting for Cal and Stanford specifically was that, I mean, obviously they both have great academics and that's a big part of the selling point, but also both of those schools are really good at a lot of the like non-revenue sports, which I think Stanford wins like the Director's Cup like every year for kind of all around athletic excellence. And then Cal also, like has the water polo team, the swim teams, kind of like those water sports that they like win national championships with every year. So I think that was an interesting part of it too, that like the other athletics programs too, that weren't really getting too much attention, but I think actually ended up kind of being at least part of the selling point.
Yeah. It just shows you right there that it's a football world, right? When it comes to college, basketball doesn't even really hold weight anymore to a large extent. So yeah, it was unfortunate, but all right, let's kind of kick into this week's game. Fun matchup going on. Who knows the next time these guys are actually going to be facing each other? So what's the general feeling on Cal right now? And I mean, there's been some positives, but at the same time too, there's been some pretty key injuries for you guys as well.
I think the season started off with a lot of optimism. I mean, Cal fans are kind of known for optimism when it's perhaps not warranted. But, everyone's really excited. We had all these new quarterbacks and, fall camp looked really good. Defense looked great. Like the secondary looked fantastic. Backfield is great. Like all of these things were kind of looking good. And then, you had like such a blowout win against North Texas, and then things kind of slowed down, and then conference play started. And I think the energy just kind of dwindled. But I think there's a lot more energy that's now back after the Oregon State game. I mean, Cal didn't win, but Fernando Mendoza was just such a big piece of that's all really anybody can talk about. So I think people are back in a little bit. They're getting a little excited. And, it's the factor of, Cal's got the hardest stretch in program history right now. They're playing 5 ranked teams in a row. With the bye after the Utah week. But I think that's kind of given everybody like a nice little competitive edge, a little challenge, like, come on, bring it on, that kind of thing.
For sure. So you mentioned Fernando, and he's really broke out lately. So who are some of the guys on the team that you fans should watch for? And on top of that, after mentioning some of those, like, where is this team maybe a little bit different than last year? Which at the same time, too, Utah and Cal haven't played each other for a minute either. So there's a lot of unfamiliarity with a lot of the stuff.
A couple guys to watch out for. I've been saying this kind of every week, anytime I do something like this, but I think Caleb Elarms-Orr is fantastic. Linebacker. He is second in the team with tackles right now, I believe, behind Jackson Sermon, who's actually out right now with an injury and is day-to-day, so might not even play this weekend. But he's, been a real playmaker. Last year, he only recorded statistics on special teams and participation, and this year has just kind of come out and, all guns a-blazing, and, he's been really great. Tron Grizel has also been another name on offense. He's a wide receiver. He was a walk-on and, just did really great in fall camp and kind of made his way up the depth chart. And, he's been getting a lot of touches too. Another name I will say that's popping up over the last couple of weeks is Javian Thomas, or the Jet, as people call him. And by people, I mean like Spav. He is a true freshman running back. And, he's been seeing a lot more action too recently. Because before they would kind of put him in as like like another block, or, just kind of like not really as like a true running back, but he got his first career touchdown on Saturday against Oregon State. And Spavital said himself this week that he will be using him a lot more like as a running back. And I mean, behind Jay Knott, behind even Ashton Stredick, Isaiah Fonse, there's a lot of depth there, but I think he's going to be, have more of a higher profile.
For sure. So kind of getting back to Fernando, right? Because again, I could sense your excitement, obviously, when you're talking about him. So, talk to me a little bit more about him. He deserves some praise lately, like I said. So what does he do well? What are some areas that he can maybe improve? And what are maybe some things that Utah can even exploit with, one, obviously the big obvious thing is to me that freshman quarterbacks just don't fare well at Rice-Eccles Stadium, and especially against the Utah defenses. And it showed already with Dante Moore at UCLA.
Yeah, well, that's something that actually came up in media availability this week. Jake Spavital, I keep saying his name, he's defensive coordinator for people who don't know. He was talking about that a lot, saying, okay, like Fernando did great against Oregon State, but, now you have an away game, not many home fans. Very loud. And he said that communication is something that they're going to have to really focus on this week heading into that game, because, they're going to have to make sure that everything is completely on point and that, Fernando doesn't get overwhelmed. He had his first career start. This will be his second. That's a high energy stadium, sellout crowd, loud, rowdy crowd. So I think they're trying to focus on making sure that everything is going exactly to plan and kind of trying to prepare for that atmosphere. But more generally, I think, I might be wrong, but kind of from where I'm standing, nobody really considered Fernando at all as a contender until fall camp started. And then he, at times, looked like the most consistent of the three with, NC State transfer Ben Finley and TCU transfer Sam Jackson. Like, they would kind of trade off throughout fall camp on, who was looking the best. And Sam had a really tough start to fall camp. He, was not doing so great, but then got better by the end and, earned the starting role eventually. But Fernando at times did look like the kind of most competent even of the three, which is interesting because he was the least experienced. And then, and then Sam earned the start, and then Ben earned the start. And I wrote this in a column. This kind of felt like a Hail Mary, like, sure, why not? Let's just put Fernando in and see how he does. And, he did great. And I think part of that is because he just studies and he listens. I think where things go wrong for Finley and Jackson is they try to play a little bit too much hero ball. They try to make a play out of every play. And, sometimes you just need to move the ball down the field, get the first down. And I think that's actually what Mendoza is really good at. I think also just his energy. He's very high energy guy. I don't know if you've seen any of his press conferences. He's just super excited to be anywhere. And I think the team rallies around him because of that. They like
That's
him.
what I was just gonna say. Yeah. It's key. It's key. I mean, and not to cut you off or anything. I mean, you look at it with like Cam Rising, right? And still the unknown of him coming back or not for Utah, whether it's this week, next, whatever, right? That's, you can talk about his experience all you want on Utah missing it. No offense to any of the other quarterbacks that have been in the game. It's Cam's energy is so infectious that and contagious that it just guys feed off it, right? It's not even the offense, it's the defense. And so I'm sure that that's the same situation that's going on down there.
No, absolutely. And it was also interesting to see kind of how his demeanor changed a little bit when he was on the field. He was like ordering guys around, he was like game mode, directing traffic in the end zone, which I thought was funny. He kind of looked like he really knew what he was doing, which for a first career start for a freshman, was really impressive. So I think for them, it's just a matter of kind of trying to keep that going as they continue to play, ranked teams.
For sure. So you've heard the coaching staff talk about Utah's defense. I wouldn't expect you to have watched a bunch of Utah's defense or anything like that, right? They're a very attacking group. Really like to bring the pressure. For the most part, really good in coverage, right? But their strength is their front seven as well as their two safeties. Okay, so Fernando's strengths. You've seen it. How would you expect them to attack Utah's defense in order to have any success?
That's something that, again, came up in media availability this week. There were a lot of questions about that because I'm sure that's something that's on a lot of people's minds, especially with our offense has at times been a little bit touch and go. O-line is looking better than last year, but, still starting center went down. Everything's a little all over the place. But from what I understand, it seems like they're trying to just build everything around protecting Fernando. And while obviously that's typically how that goes, Spav said that Fernando was Davis Webb-esque. So kind of that sort of style, just trying to like keep him safe and making sure that he knows what he's doing. He doesn't get flustered and kind of building what has been called hogs for Spav, the offensive lineman sort of around him. So when that came up in media availability this week, everything that was said was just basically ensuring that, like I said, communication's good. Everyone knows what they're doing and just kind of putting on that pressure with the O-line because I don't think Fernando's quite there yet in terms of like his playmaking ability to be able to, run all these crazy routes and, kind of do a little bit of what Sam Jackson has been doing for the past few weeks and, scramble and, get the first down on his feet. He did that a little bit against Oregon State, but it might be a little bit harder against Utah.
Yeah. See, and Utah's going through the same situation right now where, they're wanting to beef up the playbook and they just can't because they have so many guys out on offense. And so I get that for sure, especially with the young quarterback, right? But okay, so if you're the defense coordinator for Cal, Utah's offense, it's been bad, again, just because of all the injuries, right?
Yeah.
A lot of inexperienced guys playing right now that it's trial by fire, right? So how would you attack Utah's offense?
It's interesting because Cal's defense has been kind of the shining light where, the offense has been struggling. Special teams have really been struggling. And last week, they just did not look like the unit that they've looked like for the past few weeks. And Peter Sermon, the defensive coordinator, talked about, like needing to win the one-on-ones because they haven't been at all. And I think that's actually pretty important because, we have some great names on defense that have been, great playmakers all through camp, through the first few weeks. I think at a certain point a couple weeks ago, Cal was leading the country in forced turnovers. So, you know, they're able to put that pressure on. It's just, I guess the energy was lacking, or I don't know what happened. I don't think they know either, but just something shifted, and it seems like Cal is unable to have all three units as an offense, defense, and special teams able to function at the same time,
For sure.
which has been part of their downfall. But I think for the Cal defense, it's just getting back to where they were before. And I guess keeping their head in the game and just making sure that they're staying concentrated. They've been talking a lot about, you know, the explosive pass plays. And that's really not something they did great against Oregon State in, I mean, especially with DJ. But I think just kind of trying to get back to that and, you know, just capitalizing on it.
Yeah, well, at this point in time, Utah really doesn't have a lot of explosive pass plays. So they had the big touchdown last week, and then they actually had. I'll give them credit. It's there. They just need to execute right or not commit stupid penalties. Like there was they would have had a big touchdown that could have swung the momentum of the game when Utah played Oregon State before their bye last week, right? That was called back because of an offensive line penalty, and it was the most irrelevant offensive line penalty, but it was a penalty, So it's there, but again, Utah just hasn't executed it with the guys that they've had at their disposal, right? So, we've talked plenty about Cal's offense. So instead of asking like the different ways of attack with that, if you're Utah's offense, how would you attack Cal's defense right now? What are going to be some of the soft spots?
Honestly, this sounds a little silly, but just get in their head.
Yeah.
I think that they're not quite on the right track yet. I think they've gotten, for the lack of a better word, bamboozled over the past few weeks. And, they understand the kind of monstrous challenge in front of them with the 5 ranked teams. And it's not going to get any easier after this week. After the bye, they've got USC, Oregon, and then Washington State. That's not an easy lineup. The conference is doing great right now. And I think something's missing. And I can't figure out what it is. Like they just seem either to be lacking energy or momentum or something. Cause I know that they can do it. I've seen, them, obviously practice is not the game, but I've seen them do it in practice and I've seen them do it over the past few weeks. But something about the energy, or I don't know what, but something's off. And I think it might change with, like you said, the entire team's going to be rallying around Fernando, much more so than they have against, the other quarterbacks. So maybe that'll help. But honestly, I have no idea.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned like the gauntlet coming up, right? I mean, Utah's got it, Washington's got it, Oregon's got it, USC's got it. I mean, there's a lot of it's not getting easy for a lot of teams, right? And I will fully admit that the two teams that are probably sleeping okay at night right now are Washington and Oregon, but at the same time too, it's going to flip for one of them after this week, right?
Yeah.
I mean, USC looks like a paper tiger to me. If you ask me, don't tell Ryan I said that, since that's the main team he covers, right? But we'd have a friendly back and forth on a text thread on that, and me stating exactly all the reasons. But yeah, no, it's
overtime against Arizona. I mean, come on.
I don't know what kind of blackmail Grinch has on Lincoln Riley, and you can even bring that up to Ryan too, because it's bad. It is bad. You see it, so but no, it's a fun conference season, and it just sucks that this is the end.
Yeah, everyone's been talking about Pac-12 after dark.
Yeah.
USC saw that last week. I mean, Cal saw a little bit of it against Oregon State, not so much against Washington. That was tough.
I mean, they put up a better fight than Utah did against Oregon State, but oh my gosh, Utah's injuries are just piling up. Yeah. They've even added a couple more this week just in practice. So it's never ending. It feels like it's just one of those snake bitten years. It's just nuts.
Yeah, Cal had a little bit of that. The running back room was pretty dinged up, actually, to the point where I think they had to move somebody off defense into the running back depth chart because they were worried. Because they had 2 transfers come in the offseason, Justin Williams-Thomas from Tennessee and Byron Cardwell from Oregon. and Byron Cardwell's out for the season.
Yeah.
Like that. And Justin Williams-Thomas has just gotten into pads for the first time since he got here in practice.
Yeah.
So, and then Matthew Cindric, I'm sure you've heard that name. He is, you know, captain over and over again for this Cal team. They adore him. He's, you know, a veteran, and he's out for the season too with the same injury, but on the other arm to what happened to him last year. And he had to miss the second half of the season. Yeah. And so it's kind of been, and, you know, the quarterbacks have been getting dinged up too. I mean, that's the reason that Finley played against North Texas was because Jackson got hurt. And so it's kind of been, there's a level of unease, I think, because it's such a new team. There's 49 new guys on the roster this year. And with all these injuries, it's just kind of making them feel, I think, a little bit unsteady.
Dang. So Utah at one point had, I want to say 15 to 16 guys within the 1 to 2 deep out. Their running back room, their starter could play this week, but he's been dinged up. Jaquindon Jackson, you know, his the backup to him, who's more of a co-starter, he had a freak incident with the scooter. Ooh. And then so they've been starting their number 3 guy, who is hit and miss. He's got his moments, right? But after that, they had an injury to another one of their running backs in the Oregon State game that he's going to be at least out for a while, right? And then Chris Curry, who's just so snake bitten by injuries, he finally comes back. They're excited about him. He ends up suffering a season-ending injury this week in practice. So Utah is down on their depth chart to the next 2 guys as running backs, weigh roughly about 175 pounds, blazing fast, but 175 pounds. So they feel Cal's pain. It's just, it's a crazy year.
For sure.
So going in the game, okay. Just give me a few quick keys to the game for Cal to pull this up. Give me 3 keys to the game, 2 to 3 keys to the game that Cal needs to do in order to pull off this upset.
Fernando Mendoza needs to keep doing what he's doing. Just keep getting better, keep doing what he's doing, and not let himself, like I said earlier, like Spaff said, not let himself get flustered in that stadium with that crowd away from home. That's number 1. Number 2, something that worked really well last week is something they've been trying to do is spread the ball around on offense. The week before against Arizona State, Jeremiah Hunter was the only receiver to have caught a ball until the last 3 or 4 minutes of the fourth quarter. They were looking for versatility. And they found it, I think, a lot more last week. Jack Endries, the tight end, was leading in receiving yards, which is something that they've been trying to get the tight ends more involved in. So just diversity on offense and what Fernando does with the ball, and, you know, utilizing the running backs that try utilizing, you know, the wide receivers, the tight ends, all of that. They have the talent there. They just need to be able to use it. And then third, this is kind of like a should this happen, but if Jackson Sermon is still out, I think it'll be really key for them to be able to like reorganize at the linebacker position, and kind of, because he's such a key part of that defense, just to kind of make sure that that does not hurt them, because he's day-to-day right now, and I don't know if he's going to play.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Is Cal as difficult with putting injury news out like Utah is? Utah holds, I think, like a state secret.
Yeah, we have our obligatory injury update every Tuesday at media availability, and we kind of get it out of the way. And I think everyone in our media room at least knows best not to pry too much, because we know what we're going to get, and what we get is what we're going to get. And a lot of the times it's, you know, it's between the certain player and the medical staff or the doctor, which, you know, also makes sense, you know, like it's also their health and things like that. But, you know, we get enough to understand if someone's back or day to day. And then from that, we kind of infer what we infer. So.
Yeah. So Utah, you pretty much almost don't find out unless it's a season ending one, you don't find out until Saturday. It's
that's how it was for Cal with quarterbacks. Not so much with injury, but, you know, there would not be a starting quarterback. I think from weeks 2 to 5, no, from 2 to 6, there was not a named starting quarterback. until you saw who was on the field on Saturday.
I mean, it's kind of how Utah's been dealing with it. So yeah, they feel your pain big time. But you know, all right. So just wrapping her up. Let's hear your prediction for the game. What's going to happen? What's the score?
I knew this was coming, and I did not have time to think. Against Oregon State, I think I said 41-31, which honestly, I wasn't super far off in terms of range. Here, I think it'll be closer, to be honest. I mean, there's a lot of things to adjust for. I put too much thought into these. Let's go with 31-28.
For who?
For Cal. No. I'm trying to think.
Okay. I'm gonna give you a chance to maybe change the score too, because you're expecting Cal to put up 28 points on one of the top defenses in the entire country.
Well, because I've been thinking about this, and with the 5 ranked teams, there has to be at least one upset. So I've been trying to figure out who it's going to be, because I'm not sure it's going to be more than one, but there will certainly be one. So for a second, I was like, oh, this will be the week, but I don't think so.
Hey, you can call the upset. Like what I'll flat out tell you is without Cam Rising, without some of the other key guys, you know, everybody is freaking out, wondering how in the hell Utah is going to score points, and almost hope that you get a defensive score too, right? You know, yeah. So everybody kind of feels like Utah's score is just going to be low, and the defense just has to do its thing. So, what are you thinking?
24-21 Utah.
You're not going with the upset, huh?
No, I thought about it, and I don't think so. I think even with the Utah's offense being all over the place, I don't think the Cal defense is quite there yet to quite match up against it. And with just how good the Utah defense is, I don't think the Cal offense is quite there yet. I think they need a couple more games to kind of feel it out. Because I think a lot has changed for them offensively in the past week. And I think going into Utah against that defense with, you know, kind of still figuring this whole new thing out, I don't think they're going to fare very well, to be honest. But I do think it'll be close.
There you go. So I'll go. I mean, Cole always gives his on this too. So I better give mine. But, you know, I just sit back and I take a look at everything, and Utah has no offense, and it's not me slamming the guys, right? It's what do you expect when you have, I'm just shooting a number out there right now, but it's like they're missing their top 5 to 6 playmakers. And then you have, I mean, they finally got one quarterback back that was supposed to be the second string quarterback, but he's not up to speed yet, right? So if Cam does not play, if Cam Rising does not play, Utah is playing that game with the guy that started off the season as the 4th string quarterback, as the starter. You know, and he has his moments, right? And then bringing back a rusty number 2 that hasn't had a lot of action the last little while because of his injury. Yeah. You know, it's just, it's frightening to think like, okay, are these guys going to score points? Because the deeper you dig into that depth chart, it doesn't matter. They're going up against a P5 team, right? You know, so I'll go, because Utah's defense is just so damn difficult, and they're dinged up too. But I'm gonna go 20-10 Utah.
Fair enough.
Here's a lot of my thinking on this too. Is Utah's got a really good punter and special teams unit, so when it comes down to it, they're really able to flip the field and give Utah, you know, really, you know, their favorable field position. You know, and so I think that's going to be something that plays a factor into this game.
Yeah, that's something Cal does not have. We have a punter, Blackman Wilson. He's great. He was Pac-12 special teams player of the week last week. That's just about it. I mean, they finally made the change at kicker, so Mateen Boghani's now kicking, and you know he's been doing well. But punt return, kick return, awful, so bad, like near worst in the country.
That's yeah. Utah struggled there the last couple of years, so they went from a giant strength to the last few years of just absolutely struggling. So it's been nice to see it back. Utah's hoping to get their kicker back too. So that'll be another key thing on this. But Maria, I appreciate your time so much. Before I let you go, is there anything you want to plug? Give everybody any of your social medias, any of that.
Sure. Twitter, Maria Kholl, first part of my name with an extra L on the end.
Cool. And then they can find your stuff over at cal.rivals.com, or what's the other way to be able to look it up with the Golden Bear Report?
I think it's just Golden Bear Report, and if you type in my name, I believe it should be able to come up on forums and on Football News.
There you go. You doing any podcasts yourself too?
No, I am not, but I've been doing a lot of these recently. I think this is my third.
Hey, you're good with it. I've appreciated it. So
thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
You coming out for the game at all, or no?
I am not coming out for the game. There's just some travel is too expensive, and I think this.
Hey, I get it. You know,
I want to see the stadium.
It's a awesome stadium. The scenery just around it, the setting, it's just gorgeous.
Have you been to Markham?
You know what? When I was a little kid, so it's been a long time. I actually think I went out there when Utah played Cal, before Utah was even a blurb on the college football scene. So it's been a long time. But yeah.
It's a beautiful stadium.
Yeah, I've seen some stuff. I've seen some stuff recently, just with like some nighttime views of it and everything, and just like whole panoramic thing. It looked pretty. It looked pretty special.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah. Eventually, you'll have to get out here and check out one of the games. It's, like I said, it's a fun atmosphere. And it's a difficult one too. So Cal's gonna have their hands full, but at the same time too, they put up a lot better fight against Oregon State than Utah did. So it's going to be interesting on Saturday, especially if Rising doesn't play.
Yeah, it should be a good game.
Yeah. Well, hey, thank you again for your time, and enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank you.
So, thanks, everybody.